Holy smokes. Yeah, I haven't done one for a while. I was on one of Raging's things one night and listening to him. And A.J. texted me there and he says, well, that thing I did on him and Critical was nonsensical. So how do I explain this, guys? Yeah, in a very condensed, articulate form. Because I'm not Frank Vaughn. I like small words. I like one-syllable words if I can. So to put this in perspective, so I said, AJ, I says, okay, I'll do one at 5 a.m. tomorrow. Well, it's not tomorrow, and it's not 5 a.m., so I guess I'm ahead of the schedule. No, actually, I tried making like 3 or 4 or whatever, but I've been working up on a mountain. Man, I'm telling you, like, just internet up here, sketchy, no cell service. Yeah, it makes it hard, and I just want to thank, like, my analytics said, you know, pretty much say on YouTube nobody watches me, right? And then all of a sudden I come across guys just thanking me and stuff, and then I've seen that that lovely young lady's, that lovely young woman's little vid there. What the hell am I doing on there? But just to get back to put things into perspective with AJ. Look, man, the bottom line is this. This is a common law land, okay? These are the laws. This is the rule of law of this land. Now, there's also the legal society. Okay, so anything to do with the corporate body politic, that's all legal, right? So when you're looking at all these different, now if you go into law kind of thing, you'll find out there's many, many, many jurisdictions of law, all right? And if you notice, like, there, you'll never find a lawyer or a solicitor or an attorney that specializes in all aspects of you know, law, right? And so you gotta understand, because this is a common law land, you know, mankind trumps all societies, all titles, all persons, as long as you're not causing harm, loss, or injury to your fellow man. And to put that into perspective, let's just say that every society, organ, organization, person exists because of a man or woman backing it. So, like, let's say I punched the Prime Minister in the nose, okay? They can come at me all legal ways, right? Criminal, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But if I was to apologize to the man, because I didn't punch a Prime Minister, I punched a man. Like, just, you know, of course it's alleged at the time, but anyways, if I settle with that man, if I apologize to that man and cover the costs of the damages of the harm I did cause him, then the legal society all of a sudden has no real jurisdiction because it's settled between the parties. All right? So anyways, and I mean, I can go down a whole rabbit hole just on that. But that's not what my wish is. Like, holy sheep shit. This fucking Corona stuff, this is seriously bad crap, man. Wow. I downloaded, or my son, the sapper, he downloaded some stuff to help me to be able to, because what I'd like to do is, like, you know, on Ezra's little sneaky recording, what I'd like to do is sit down and just show you how I would act if that was, you know, if I was the one invited to this meeting with these two moonlighters that were working for Elections Canada, right? I would never call them investigators. I would never call them anything but a man. And my first question to these guys is, how do you wish to be addressed? And if they wish to be addressed as investigator 1 and investigator 2, because only a man can wish, that's how I would address them. Just as long as they know we're talking man to man. Also, what I'd like to show you guys is how to answer. Now, this is why I talk about the Gospels. If you look in the Gospels, when Jesus was at court, he didn't make any definite statements. They had no jurisdiction over that man. And that's why he questioned them. If you go into a legal proceeding, I don't care if it's a public legal proceeding, a private legal proceeding, if you go into any legal proceeding and you start making definite statements, obviously you are competent. And obviously you're a competent partake in the legal society. And obviously you're competent to be hung by the legal society. So as I work this, I know I'm a fucking boomer, all right? Leave me alone. Respect your fucking elders. But I'm not a dead boomer, so I'm learning this technology so that I can sit there and put stuff up like the Ezra film and just start and talk about it and show you how I would actually do this. All right. Yeah. I was waiting for a little friction between a few of the Canadian fellas, and I enjoy watching all you guys. Critical, A.J, Frank Vaughn, Raging, which I just find Raging hilarious, and the problem is my son and I, because I got run over by those cars and ripped out my guts, my liver, my lung, my spleen, my ribs on one side of my body. I'm not really supposed to drink, but raging has this effect on us. And the other night, before I headed back down the mountain, or to the other mountain to do this job I'm on, he pulls out a bottle of really, really good tequila. So yeah, it's and I likened it like, son, back in the 1920s and teens, this is a family sat around the radio listening to shit like this, discussing it, and that's what it reminds me of. Now we're sitting around the internet. But there's so many guys like Frank's doing a hell of an investigation on the corona. Everybody seems to have their attribute, and there's so much information coming out through you guys that I don't see a need to entertain that. I know I kind of get swept up in it and go, and one of the reasons is back in the late 80s and early 90s I was learning this stuff that you guys are just learning about now. And back then, like I was telling guys about New World Order. Now back in the late 80s, right? Guys, fuck hell, fuck hell. Where's your tinfoil hat? This and that. And I'm like, no, guys, this is what's happening. A church that I was associated with, there were a few patriots in that church, in the U.S. federal government and stuff, and FBI and that kind of thing. And when Waco happened, one of the FBI guys that was on one of the helicopters filmed it, and then got the film down to us through the church, which was pretty cool. And explained to me at the time that, it was a UN exercise. There was a number of reasons for the exercise. But one of them was to desensitize the population to this kind of shit, government attacking citizens. And the other one was, it was a UN exercise. Actually, all the boots on the ground at the time, and this is what I believe to be true, the boots on the ground that invaded Waco, not one of them was an American. And as far as I remember, most of them were Scotsmen, from Scotland. One of the main fighters that fought back on these guys with a machine gun was a 56-year-old grandmother. And I remember watching her in the interview at the time, right? So, I mean, none of this, I mean, things have progressed so much more since Waco. I mean, look what the fuck is going on. And everything that happens, they do it bit by bit. The mainstream media, you know, everything that happens is to desensitize the public. The last thing that Trudeau wants on this frickin' land is communities, our communities of people who believe in this nation. Now, I believe in this nation. But when I say something like, I believe in this nation, I'm saying that I believe in my fellow man and woman who are of this land, from this land. And that knocks out all creed, color, past descendants and everything. That puts us all on the same, and I see everybody as equal. Now, you know, I have a number of Native buddies, all right, good friends. And, you know, as tight as we are, I will never be Native. Okay, as tight as we are, I'm only accepted into, you know, their world to a point. Okay, and I see that because that's their society, it's their people, you know, and they have. I mean, there's a huge history of abuse on these folks, and I've covered it, touched base on it in other films. Like unfucking believable. But the Indian Act and the sellout chiefs, and so those poor folks, guys. When you see natives, like, you know, don't just make some kind of fucking condemnation, which means, you know, and like you say, and I maintain this position, or I stand. This is how I stand. This is what I believe. That, you know, when the Bible reads, you know, judge not lest you be judged, I believe that was a loose translation of the word judge, and I believe it was a translation of don't condemn, otherwise you're condemning yourself, all right? And this is what I believe, all right? So I could give a fuck with anybody believes what I believe or not, but I do give a fuck about this nation. I do care that I'm coming to the end of my fucking circle of life, and people don't, like my fellow man, like my neighbors, my brothers and sisters and cousins, and people within the, you know, the jurisdiction of Quebec, and folks within the jurisdiction of Newfoundland, and within the jurisdiction of Alberta, and I mean your average guy, like the Plaid Army guys. I love watching these guys. You know, they're young bucks and they're full of piss and vinegar, but until you recognize a man, until you recognize mankind, these guys aren't going to get it. You protest, you know, protesting, okay, well, you got the right to protest. Of course you have the right to protest. It's a God-given right. It comes with free speech and free think and free press. Anything against free press, free speech is a totalitarian. Okay, you might as well just, you know, let's just call ourselves Soviet Union of Canada. I mean, you let this happen. I mean, you know, everybody's telling me how wonderful China is, and look at that body of government right now. Now, every one of those folks, you know, so some of you guys, you know, that I watch, you know, you were born in late 80s, you know, 90s, okay? So I remember watching China go from, you know, pretty much barefooted, dirt poor people with AK-47s, their armies, right? And when China, when they worked it out that, hey, look, we can be like the West, oh, hey, we could be like the West, and but we can still be a totalitarian system. And so as I watched China come about, and I watched us sell out all our jobs and sell out our own people and sell out our manufacturing and sell out our natural resources and just sell ourselves down the river. That's what we have allowed these shills that act as our government to do. These guys are traitors. They're total traitors. But watching China come up, and they had the appearance of basically, they had the appearance more of a a Napoleonic civil code style country, where people had some certain basic freedoms and this and that coming up. But now that things are, now they brought their technology up, okay? I've watched this technology come up, I've watched people get modern, and now that they've come to a point, I'm also seeing this regime start to clamp down on everybody. Now that they have the technology, they allowed the people, they started off with the slave labor, the $1 a day, 6 to a cubicle in these manufacturing things, and we just ate it up. Oh, cheap, 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 cheap. And who gives a shit about their fellow man and some children working and 16-hour days and living in a cubicle and getting a bowl of fucking rice and sending home, maybe it was, I don't even know if it was $1 a day back then. I think it was less. And who gives a fuck about that? I get my Fruit of the Looms cheap now. That's our attitude, man. And as a society, we are not cool. Okay, Canada as a nation is not cool to allow this shit. And the particles that these guys, the pollution that we've allowed these guys to fucking just pour out. And so now we did this, we saw the greedy end of it, we saw the easy end of it, we acted like a bunch of spoiled little peckerhead fucking pencil neck geeks, and then now we don't manufacture fuck all, and now this same shill elitists, okay, we got two groups of elitists that I know about, the intellectual elitists, and we got the fucking 1% business elites, okay? So now I'm watching them allow us to come and eat ourselves. Now they're attacking us, and through the propaganda, these Nazi corporate fucking crown schools propagandizing our young ones. And these poor kids don't even have a fucking clue. So we're allowing the earth to get totally demolished by places like China, and I think India might be making some kind of attempt, but now these totalitarian governments are sending their people worldwide. And now, hey, the beast that they were hanging on to by the tail just got loose. And this corona thing is bad, man. Bad. Anyways, I'll let everybody else talk about that stuff, and as they find their stuff, I'll just throw it on my site. Well, what I wish to talk about is the common law, because nobody knows who the fuck they are on this land. It's just crazy. My dad's dying words, back in, well, even before he died, right? But, that was his thing. When the first Nazis, in my lifetime that I saw, with Trudeau and Alan Rock, when they first came out and brought in this FAC bullshit, my old man said, hey, don't do it, Al. And, Canada's a fairly peaceable place. Guy doesn't really need a gun. We were. Could you imagine if we started getting sick like those folks in China with the corona? Or whatever, some kind of biological warfare that they let loose on Canada? Can you imagine what would happen? Oh man, we don't have the army, a totalitarian army to go and attack the poor people of this land like China does. I mean, they're being rounded up, they're being burnt. I mean, it's crazy. It's fucking nuts. But what I do have a clue about is how to stand as a man and how to deal with the legal society. Okay? Now the establishment is the legal society. And why do I even bother? Because I care about this nation. I mean, most of you guys, I'm sure anyone, all three of you that watch my shit, I'm sure you guys have seen the paper that was put out by, Trudeau's little puppet general guy, that phony baloney. You know, and he's saying, okay, the number 1, 2, 3, 4 column of threats of Canada, you know. So they got KKK and Christians in the exact same column. All right. Well, I got an issue with that, because this woman that these guys all gave an oath to the Queen, okay, to the woman who acts as the Queen, and these guys gave an oath to this woman, right, to protect her oath, okay? So they're bound by her oath. Any of these fucking these public servants are bound by her oath to you and I. Okay? Now, they just made her enemy number 1 because she's the head of the Anglican Church, the Church of England, which is a Christian church, and she be the head of it. So now she is enemy number 1 on this land. That's treason, you guys. And this is why I want to learn to use what all you guys are doing now. And Frank Vaughan's been working. Well, actually, he's done pretty good, man. He's put out pretty good, like just, you know, being able to bring stuff up and get his face in the background. But this is why I wish to bring this, be able to do a little bit of this technology. I can't do a live stream, because when we do have proper signal, as best a signal you can get up on the mountain for Wi-Fi, it's not enough for me to do any kind of live stream. I went through an 8-hour fucking episode, me and my sapper son, and no, we finally figured it out. I talked to the Wi-Fi company, and you know, and we lose Wi-Fi up here all the time. Like, it's just shit. Nothing's reliable. Power is more reliable now, but we used to have power outages all the time. You're sitting in your kitchen, right, and having a coffee, and all of a sudden all the light bulbs go whoop, and almost they get so bright that you think they're all going to explode in the house. And power surges that we used to get. We still do, but not quite that bad. It doesn't take much to knock out the power up here. There is no natural gas up here. So, you know, wood, okay? Electricity is still fairly cheap, except for the fact that all the fees. Now, how the fuck do you have a carbon fee on hydro? We have nothing but hydro dams. Where's the carbon fee come from on hydro? What is it, like we're bubbling up the water and it's releasing carbon? You know, is it like fish farts that we're releasing into the atmosphere? Do fish even fart? I don't know. Oh, I got a good joke for you. Okay, before this limited camera of mine shuts off. Adam and Eve. Okay, so God makes Adam a mate, Eve, but he doesn't give Adam an instruction manual over it. So Adam's not quite sure what to do with this woman, this friend of his that God created for him, and his mate. And so, you know, and you got the tree of knowledge, and Eve's always over at this tree of knowledge, and she's picking up these apples all the time, right? And she's bending over and picking them up and bending over. She's looking back at Adam every time she does this, right? And Adam, you know, he gets his heart on every time he sees her. And he goes, God, what's going on with me? He says, you didn't give me any instructions here. I don't know what to do with her. Like, but every time I watch her bend over at the tree of knowledge, you know, my muscles get stiff. So finally, Eve, he's just taunting. He doesn't know. He just instinctively goes right at her and makes passionate animal love to her, right, as she's bent over. So after he's done, he goes, holy shit, this is kind of cool, and he heads down to the pond to go wash. And just as he just gets out of the pond, God shows up and says, Adam, don't do it. We'll never get the smell out of the fish. Hope that doesn't get me in too much trouble. Anyways, yeah, so I wish to stick on the common law. If any of you guys really, you know, look up Carl Lentz, a buddy of mine, you know, or good, you know, I call him he's a good associate. He picks up the phone when I phone him, and anybody that knows me knows that I'm not really good on phones. And part of that's from my boomer experience in the 70s, eh? We used to have a sign beside our phone that says loose lips sink ships. Not that we were a bunch of criminals, but back then, man, I remember when Trudeau Sr. outlawed high times. Outlawed high times, okay? So to get high times back in, I think it was 1979, 1980, to get high times, we had to get them to wrap them in black paper and mail them to us from the U.S. You know, like nuts, right? I remember when Trudeau Sr. Shut down all the head shops. There used to be head shops everywhere, but they weren't just head shops. They had all kinds of cool novelty shit, and I got a really good pair of handcuffs there one time. No, not for what you're thinking about, but I used to just lock up my back wheel, from my frame through my wheel with them. But they were like really good quality. They were, this is pre-Chinese imitation shit that we get today. Where they've lowered the life cycle. Something a lifetime now they say is 5 years. Well, shit, it used to be 30 years, guys. Your kids grow up and move out. You hand them down the washing machine. And Mama got an excuse to finally get a new washing machine. I mean, that's what we did. Look at it now. It's crazy. These guys are all going on about global warming and pollution, yet you're making all these shitty little devices everywhere in China where there's no pollution control. And oh my God. We are nuts. And Canada, okay, and I'm talking about this nation, all right? Those of us of this nation, I love this nation. I always used to believe in this nation. I watched us as a young man go from a world-class Army, Navy, and Air Force. Now, my old man was in, he was signals, so, he was black ops stuff. But I watched us go from a world-class, 22 million people in the country, we had a world-class Army, Navy, and Air Force. Small, talented, and hit hard. World respected. All right? And I watched Trudeau Sr. and his cronies, and his Nazi cronies, turn this country upside down and amalgamated the armed forces to the armed forces, cut the fucking budgets, turn us into a world-class clown act. Now, the only thing that's kept our military as good as they are the individuals. Those ones of us are, like, Canadians are very unique, man. And it's our talents as Canadians, as each one of us that do sign up for the military, that still keep us as good as we actually are, even though our public service has tried to squish it down. Now, our military comes out with this document making Queen Elizabeth our #1 threat to this country. Okay? Yet, that general's supposed to be a goddamn Queen's man. Not the Prime Minister stooge, the Queen's man. Remember, if you go back and, when I show you the inner city of London, the Queen's men, the armed forces, and that's to protect her from this crown corporate bunch of bullshit. So one more thing just before I go, because I got a whack of snow I got to deal with. I haven't been home in days. I got probably a 4-hour call with Carl to do, and I need to be on my toes when I call him, so I don't like calling him when I'm not feeling that good. And like I say, I've been sleeping in a frickin' chair at job site, blah blah blah. Anyways, I'm burnt out and I got a whack of snow to fucking deal with. But now I just lost my thought. It sucks it's great being a boomer because I got to see freedom before whatever you want to call this. I don't know what you guys call this today. What is this Canada? Oh yeah, I want to touch base on, on this whole Wexit thing. Just look, guys. If we can start coming together in each community, and then each community start touching base with the other communities, if we could, right? We could produce a ground up constitution. Now, we don't have to